The file had been sitting in the drawer for over a week. Elise hadn't touched it since that rainy Tuesday when the manila envelope was slid across the desk with a whisper, "You're going to want to see this." She was told it wasn't supposed to exist, a series of internal reports and grainy surveillance images that never made it into official databases. But what caught her breath, what made her hands tremble, were the faces. Every one of the victims looked exactly like her, not similar, identical dot, same black hair, same high cheekbones, same left dimple that appeared only when they smiled. The first time she saw the composite sketch from the 2007 case in Montana, she actually thought it was her right down to the birthmark under the jawline. But it wasn't her. That woman had been found strangled in a cabin with all the mirrors shattered. Elise hadn't told anyone, not even Marco, and she always told Marco everything until now. Her fiancé thought she was taking a break from the bureau, decompressing after years of undercover work. But Elise wasn't resting. She was watching, reconstructing a timeline, mapping deaths that no one else had linked. There were 17 victims in total. The earliest was from 1999, all women. In their late 20s, all reported missing within 2 months of their birthdays. All had left behind only one thing: a mirror turned face down in their home. The killings had spanned 3 decades and 8 states, and no 2 law enforcement systems had ever connected the dots. Elise had done it only because she had started, seeing herself in places she'd never been. She looked out the window now, the city silent beneath the cold dawn. A knock came at the door twice, soft. She froze. No one knew she was here. Her weapon was under the bed, but instinct made her reach for the envelope instead. She opened the door slowly, the chain still on. Miss Gray, the man on the other side, wore a black coat, clean-shaven, expression unreadable. "Who's asking?" "I need to speak to you about the woman found in Red Hook. She looks like you." Elise's heart slammed against her ribs. "Who sent you?" "I wasn't sent. I volunteered. She was my sister." The chain rattled as she closed the door again, fast. Her back against the wood, breath shallow. There was no record of any sibling victim in Red Hook. She would have seen it. She flipped through the folder, again nothing. But that was the problem. Some pieces were being hidden from her, or removed. Outside, the man didn't knock again. She peeked through the peephole. He was gone. She left 20 minutes later, taking only the folder and a burner phone. She knew the bureau would eventually catch on to her search, and she couldn't afford to be flagged. She had one destination in mind: a rundown motel off I-87 in upstate New York. That was where the 11th victim had stayed. Elise had a hunch about the front desk log. Maybe he signed in under a false name. Maybe he watched her first. The clerk at the motel was a sleep-deprived teenager with a soda addiction and no sense of boundaries. "You look familiar," he said as she walked in. "Weren't you here a few years ago?" "No, sure. We get a lot of people, but I don't forget faces." She gave him $100 for access to the old ledgers. In the one from September 2015, she found a room number, 1 for C. A woman named Lisa Gray had stayed for 3 nights. Elise's middle name was Lisa. She went to the room. It hadn't changed. Same peeling wallpaper, same dusty air. But in the bathroom, hidden behind the loose panel of the mirror, was a photograph. It showed a young woman, her own face, smiling with someone whose face was burned out, obscured. On the back, in looping script, "The one who sees you doesn't blink." She didn't remember taking the photo, didn't remember ever being here. Her hands shook as she put it in her coat. Someone was erasing time, or replacing it. A tap on the window snapped her back. Outside, an old man stood staring. His eyes were a cloudy grey, and he said nothing. Just tapped again 3 times and walked away. Elise ran after him. "Hey, do you know who stayed here in 2015? Who took that picture?" The man didn't stop walking, but he said, without turning, "He always takes one before he kills. Yours must be next." She stopped cold. "Who is he?" The man turned his head slightly, just enough for the side of his face to catch the light. "You already met him." Elise sprinted forward, but the man was gone, just vanished between the buildings, like smoke. She stared into the alley, chest heaving, the words replaying over and over. "He always takes one before he kills." She pulled out her phone and scrolled to her cloud backup. Something Marco had helped her set up months ago. She hadn't noticed it before a new folder had been added 2 days ago. Title, Elise_smiling. Inside, a single photo. It was her, in her apartment, smiling. She'd never taken it. Elise didn't sleep that night. She locked the motel door, pulled the dresser in front of it, and sat with her back against the wall, the folder open in front of her and the photo glowing on the burner phone screen. Her own smile stared back at her, vacant, unaware. In the background of the image, just behind her shoulder, was something blurred and indistinct. A shadow, a figure. She enlarged the image, pixel by pixel. The resolution was low, but not meaningless. There was someone behind her, a shape, hunched, half-fated, standing perfectly still, watching. Her heart pounded like it wanted out of her ribs. Elise tried to remember the day. The sweater she wore in the picture was the grey one Marco had given her last winter, the one she only wore twice, both times alone. It meant whoever took the picture had been in her apartment with her, close enough to hear her breathing, close enough to smell the shampoo in her hair, but she hadn't seen anyone, hadn't heard anything. She packed up everything in silence and left the motel before sunrise. She needed answers, and there was only one person who might have them. Her old partner, Anthony Vega. He'd gone off-grid a year ago after the Henderson sting fell apart. She hadn't heard from him since. But Vega had been obsessed with a theory no one else believed, about an untraceable killer who didn't leave DNA, didn't appear on cameras, didn't exist in databases. The only clue Vega ever had was a pattern in the victims. They were all mistaken for someone else. Elise drove 5 hours straight through to the outskirts of Baltimore. Vega lived in a cabin he never registered. It took 3 near dead ends and a gas station bribe to find the right dirt road. When she arrived, the place looked abandoned, but Vega wasn't gone. He opened the door before she even knocked. He looked older, scruffier, hollow-eyed, and when he saw her, he didn't smile. "I knew you'd come," he said quietly. "When he started circling you." "What do you mean, started?" "You knew. I tried to warn you. They told me to stop. The Bureau doesn't want this one touched. They've buried files, redacted patterns. You think I just disappeared?" He let her inside. There were no lights, just lanterns. Paper files littered every surface. Elise saw her face on more than one photo. "You knew," she whispered, stunned. "You knew he was targeting women who looked like me." Vega's jaw tightened. "They don't just look like you, Elise. They are you, or parts of you." She stared at him. "What the hell does that mean? You ever get the feeling you've been somewhere before? Ever have a scar you don't remember getting? Gaps in time you explain away with stress or dreams. I'm not crazy. I never said you were. He opened a drawer and pulled out a tattered folder. Inside was a photograph identical to the one Elise had found, only this one showed a different background, same pose, same smile, a different version of her. Vega leaned in. He's not just stalking you, he's copying you. The silence in the room tightened like a noose. There's a theory, Vega continued. Black program, never confirmed. DARPA level deep. Memory replication. Neural imprinting. A subject's cognitive patterns mirrored into other hosts. That's impossible. I didn't say it worked perfectly. I said they tried. They called it Echo Project. The early subjects, women, were chosen for psychological elasticity, high emotional resilience. Do you remember ever signing anything at Quantico you didn't fully read? Elise didn't answer. Her head was spinning. There are 3 confirmed clones, Vega said quietly. I believe there are more. Each one with just enough of your baseline to act like you. But something went wrong. They degraded, fragmented. The man who created them started eliminating the unstable ones. But he didn't want to kill them, until he started believing they were you. Elise felt sick. He doesn't know who the real me is. He might now, which is why you need to leave. She shook her head. I'm not running. I'm not asking. Vega pulled a folder from the bottom of a locked box. Inside was a medical report dated 2 weeks ago. Name, Elise Gray. Status, deceased. Time of death, 3:17 a.m. She dropped the file. That's not me, no, but someone thinks it is. And if he killed her thinking it was you, he'll try again. Something shattered outside. Vega grabbed his weapon. Elise followed, pulse racing. There was a figure on the edge of the wood stall, slow moving, fading into shadow. Vega raised his gun. Don't, Elise said. That's not him. How? Do you know? Because he doesn't run, he waits. They searched the woods, found nothing. When they returned, the cabin door was open. Everything was gone. The files, the photos, the burner phones, all wiped clean like no one had ever lived there. But on the table, left alone, was a single object, a mirror. Elise stepped closer. It was her reflection staring back until it blinked, and she hadn't. Her stomach turned to ice. Vega, she whispered. He was here. A sound rose from the woods, like breathing, then a voice distorted, familiar. I've finally found you. Elise froze. The voice wasn't coming from the woods anymore. It was inside. Behind her, she turned slowly, Vega already sweeping the room with his pistol. But there was no one. Nothing moved. No shadow shifted. The cabin was silent except for the wind through the shattered window and the faint creak of floorboards settling, except they weren't. Someone else was in the house. Elise's fingers tightened around her own weapon, and she stepped cautiously into the bedroom. The mirror on the far wall was gone. In its place, carved deep into the wood, were the words, "You smiled for me once. Smile again." She backed out fast. He's playing with us, Vega growled. He's close. But why didn't he kill me just now? Elise said. He was. Right here. Because he doesn't want to just kill you. He wants to understand you. The others weren't failures, they were tests. Iterations. You're the only original. Elise stared at the message burned into the wall. A chill spread down her spine. What if I'm not? Vega looked at her, face unreadable. What are you saying? What if I'm not the original either? For a second, neither of them spoke. Then Vega whispered, "That's what he wants you to believe." But something inside Elise had shifted. She remembered a moment from years ago training, days when she'd woken up in a secure facility with an IV in her arm and no memory of how she got there. The report had claimed dehydration. But what if it was something else? What if she was one of them? A knock at the door. Sharp, deliberate. 3 knocks. Just like at the motel, Vega moved to the side of the frame. Elise stepped forward, finger on the trigger. A voice from outside, calm and eerily familiar. "You don't know who you are, Elise, but I do. I watched them make you. I named you," she gasped. Her hand trembled. "Marco," it was Marco's voice. "Open the door," the voice said. "Let's end this." "No," Vega hissed. "It's not him. That's not Marco." But Elise's brain was spinning. Marco had been with her during every critical stage, every case, every flash of instability she'd ever experienced. He was there when she blacked out for the first time. He had access to her DNA records, her sleep logs, her blood work. She reached for her phone and opened her private messages. The last conversation with Marco, just 3 nights ago. She tapped call. No ringing. The line was dead. "He never existed," she whispered. "Oh my God, he was never real." Vega pulled her away from the door. "We have to move, now." They bolted out the back, through the woods, running blind. Behind them, the cabin lit up with an eerie blue glow, exploded. The shockwave threw them to the ground. Elise's ears rang as fire roared into the sky. Everything Vega had gathered gone. They lay in the underbrush, breaths ragged. Then from the darkness behind them, a slow, heavy sound. Footsteps. Vega raised his weapon, but Elise caught his arm. "Wait." A figure emerged covered in soot, blood on her face, and she looked exactly like Elise. The woman collapsed to her knees, choking on smoke. You're real," she gasped. "I escaped. He tried to erase me. He said only one of us could stay." "Who are you?" Elise demanded. The woman looked up, tears cutting streaks through the ash. "I'm you, from before. I remember the real life, the one he made you forget." Vega turned pale. There was an original. Elise dropped to her knees. "Tell me, what did he do to us?" The woman stared into her eyes. "He split us, cut pieces, memories, traits, emotions. You got the instincts. I got the grief. Others got fear, anger, obedience. We were never whole. He kept the real one somewhere." Elise's throat tightened. "Where?" But before the woman could speak, a shot rang out. Her body jerked. Blood bloomed across her chest. She fell. Vega dove, dragging Elise down with him. A second shot whizzed overhead. They scrambled through the woods, barely dodging the third. Behind them, the voice again echoing, amplified, inhuman now. "She wasn't you, but you are, and I'll take you back soon." They drove without stopping until nightfall. Vega didn't speak. Elise clutched the dead woman's photo, ID burnt at the edges. Bloodstained. Name, Elise Gray. Issue date, 12 years ago. Address, classified. On the back, someone had scrawled a message in blue ink. "Find room 3 at the Glasshouse Institute." Elise had never heard of it. But Vega had. He turned slowly, face pale. "That place doesn't exist anymore. It burned down, with 37 patients locked inside." "What kind of patients?" "Ones that looked like you." Elise stared out at the road, her mind fractured. Between memories she couldn't verify and a future that felt written in blood, and far behind them. In the woods, the man with her face in his sights whispered again, I only need one of you. The Glasshouse Institute was buried in the government's past like a war crime no one wanted to name. Vega drove through the night, stopping only once for gas, always watching the rearview mirror like he expected the road to open up and swallow them whole. Elise said nothing. Her thoughts were tangled in a web of half-formed memories, like dreams that felt real but ended in static. The institute had burned in 2011. The official report blamed a faulty generator and a nurse who forgot to lock the doors. But Vega had something different. Image torn from a satellite. Recon file. Infrared signatures fleeing the building long after the fire started. The government never released those photos. There were survivors, Vega said, as they passed the rusted county sign. But none were ever found. Or they were found and erased. They parked a mile out. The site had been turned into a nature preserve, but the trees around the charred ruins hadn't grown back. Elise stepped out into the wind, staring at the blackened shell of a building that once housed minds like her, splintered, manipulated, maybe even manufactured. The front gate still bore the symbol, a cracked mirror encased in a circle. Her hand drifted to her coat pocket, where she kept the mirror from the cabin, the one that blinked. The glass house had no electricity, no cameras, but the walls whispered. Each room looked like a frozen moment of panic. Burned beds, metal restraints, names scratched into wall, some of them hers. They reached room 3 after 15 minutes. The door was half melted. Inside, only ashdot and something buried in it. Elise knelt, brushing soot away. A small black box. Locked, she glanced at Vega. Double quotes, "Do it," he said. She cracked it open with the butt of her pistol. Inside was a single reel of microfilm and a note, not a warning, not a confession, just 5 words. "You've never been just one, Vega." Leaned over the reel. "We'll need a lab to scan this." But Elise had stopped listening. She was staring at the wall. Someone had drawn her face again, and again in different expressions: fear, rage, joy, blankness. Under each drawing, a label: Subject 3A, Subject 3B, Subject 3C. All Elise, all different, but one sketch had no label. Just a black circle where the face should be. She touched it. The wall behind the sketch creaked and shifted. A hidden door. Vega pulled his gun. Elise pushed it open. Behind it was a narrow hall, lit only by a single dim emergency bulb that had no right still working. At the end, a metal door, locked with a keycard scanner. Vega tried his field card. It buzzed red dot, and then it clicked open. Elise stepped inside. She stopped, so did her heart. A woman sat inside, strapped to a chair, tubes in her arms, monitors around her head. Breathing dash barely dot. She looked exactly like Elise, but this one was older, tired like time, had been stretched over her like plastic. She opened her eyes and whispered, finally, "Who are you?" Elise asked, her voice barely a breath. "I'm what they took from you," the woman said. "I'm your source memory, the one they copied and fractured. You are me, divided." Tears stung Elise's eyes. Why did they do this? To make soldiers, agents without anchors, killers without guilt. But they couldn't control you, any of you. Vega stepped forward. Who is he, the one hunting Elise? The woman's eyes closed for a moment, then opened with pain. He's the caretaker. He was meant to destroy any broken copies, but he became obsessed, wanted to find the version that loved him back. And when he couldn't, he broke. Elise stepped closer. What do I do now? The woman reached up and pressed something into Elise's hand, a key. Cold, metallic, labeled only with a number. 731C. Find the vault, burn what's left, or this never ends. Suddenly, the lights flickered. A voice crackled through the ceiling, speaker faint, corrupted. You're too late. Vega swore, raising his weapon. The walls groaned. Metal slammed shut behind them. Elise turned toward the entrance sealed. The woman in the chair was weeping now, softly. He's always known when you were close. Then why wait, Elise whispered. The lights went out. Darkness swallowed them. And then a voice came from just inches behind her, because I wanted you to see what you are before I end it. Elise spun around, weapon raised in the dark, her breath shallow, heartbeat deafening. But there was no one behind her, just shadows, twisting, stretching, bending in ways that didn't obey the shape of the room. The air felt wrong, thick and metallic, like the walls themselves were holding their breath. Vega activated a small tactical light and swept the room. The woman in the chair Elise's source was gone. Her restraints still hung open, tubes dripping nothing. She didn't walk out, Vega whispered. Something took her. Elise's fingers gripped the key tighter. 731C, a vault. Maybe underground, maybe not in this building at all. But if the original version of her had just vanished again, then the vault might be the only place where the truth still lived, or the only place she could die. A sharp mechanical hiss echoed above them. Then another. Ceiling vents opened, and a cold mist poured in. Vega cursed. Gas. Move. They ran. Blind. Elise following instinct, not memory, as the mist clouded everything and the walls began to hum with hidden machinery. It wasn't a ruined asylum. It was still alive, still watching, still serving someone. A door ahead, locked, but not sealed. She forced the key into the panel beside. It click, slide, open. They tumbled into the next room, just as steel shutters slammed behind them, locking the gas out. The room was stark white, undamaged, and on the far wall, a vault door, numbered in faded paint, 731-C. But there was someone already standing in front of it. A man, smiling, wearing Marco's face. Elise, he said gently, I'm glad you made it. She lifted her pistol without thinking. You're not him. I was, he said. For a while, Vega aimed to hands where I can see them. But the man didn't move, didn't blink. I took his face because you trusted him, because he made you feel real. That was my mistake. I shouldn't have wanted you to remember. I should have just ended it like the others. Elise stepped forward, fury cold in her blood. You killed them, all of them, every version of me. No, the man said. I set them free. They were pieces, broken copies. You weren't supposed to survive this long. Why not? He tilted his head. Because you're not stable. None of you are. That's why they kept you asleep down here. But you woke up too early, and then you started looking. Vega interrupted. What's inside the vault? The man's smile faded. Memory. All of it. Every life. Every death. Every lie. You think you want the truth, but you can't survive it. Elise took another step, the vault behind him gleaming under the flickering light. Then open it. No. She shot him in the leg. He didn't fall. He didn't even flinch. The skin around the wound rippled and sealed. Vega's breath caught. He's not human. The man looked down at his own leg, almost disappointed. No, Agent Vega, I'm what you built, before you forgot. Vega fired twice more, head, chest. The man didn't even blink. I was the failsafe, he said, taking a step forward. They built me to erase errors. You were the first, the only one they couldn't overwrite, because you adapted, you evolved, and now he stopped inches from Elise. You're all that's left. She pressed the key to the vault. The lock clunked. Steam hissed from the seal. The man grabbed her wrist hard. I saw every life you could have lived, he whispered. And this was always the one where you break. She shoved the barrel of her gun under his jaw. Then let's find out. And pulled the trigger. This time he screamed. The skin peeled. Sparks burst from his mouth. He convulsed mechanical spasms and fell backward, crashing into the wall. Smoke poured from his mouth, and his last words stuttered, distorted, robotic, shecked. Opened Vault. The door creaked open. Inside was no treasure, no hard drives, no biological database, just mirrors, hundreds of them. Each one reflecting a version of Elise she didn't recognize. Her as a soldier, her as a killer, her as a mother, a prisoner, a girl in a hospital bed, a corpse on a table. Some were sobbing, some were smiling, some had no eyes. And then one moved, not her reflection. Something inside the mirror turned its head, then another and another. Each one began walking toward the glass. Elise stepped back. What is this? Vega stood frozen. They're all you. The mirror nearest her cracked just slightly. Then one of them whispered, barely audible, "He's not dead." Behind them, in the ruined doorway, a familiar voice rasped, "No, I've never even been alive." Then he lunged. The thing wearing Marco's face crashed into Vega first, slamming him into the mirror wall. Glass spiderwebbed around the impact, but didn't shatter. Elise fired a full clip into the center mass, but the bullet sparked off his skin like rain on steel. He didn't bleed this time, he hissed us. If the body was releasing heat, or power, or rage. Vega dropped, gasping. One of the mirror leases screamed. Not a reflection, a real voice from inside the vault. Elise grabbed Vega's arm, dragging him back, but the man-thing advanced without a limp. Despite the earlier wounds, "You were never supposed to see this," he growled. "You were meant to choose one version, the best one, not all." Elise ducked into the vault. The air was freezing now, the glass fogging, but the mirrors kept moving. Her reflections didn't mimic her anymore, they tracked her, followed her. Some pressed against the glass, desperate. Others grinned with inhuman stillness. "Elise," Vega croaked. "There's a sequence. Look bottom row, center." She scanned the wall. One mirror had a keypad beneath it. 5 digits, faded, burnt into the steel. Her eyes locked on it, -73113. The key number, 731C. C is the third letter. 73,113. She punched it in. Click. The mirror slid open, not shattered, not broken, just gone. Behind it, a chamber, and a woman. Elise gasped. Not a reflection, not a version, just her, but older, scarred, crying. "I was the first," the woman whispered. "They called me Subject Zero." Elise stepped in, trembling. The woman reached for her. "You weren't the original. Neither was I. We were copies of a choice." They created all of us so one could be sent into the world, the perfect. Elise, but they forgot something. What? That perfection doesn't exist. Behind her, Vega groaned, then shouted. The man-thing was back on his feet, dragging something long and gleaming from beneath his skin, a knife made of bone and wire. His eyes were gone, just static where pupils should be. Elise stepped forward. You said I was unstable, she said quietly. That I was broken. You are, he growled. No, I'm many, and that's why I win. She reached behind her, tore free one of the other mirrors from the vault, wall shattering it in her hand, sliced her palm open with the shard. Blood spilled, she smeared it on the vault's control panel. The machine beeped, accepted. Every mirror in the room began to shake. Inside, the versions of Elise all turned to face the center. They began to smile. Vega's eyes went wide. What did you do? Elise looked back once, just once. I called them home. The mirrors exploded inward, shattering, not into shards, but into forms. Bodies, dozens of Elises, poured from the vault like liquid steel. Some dressed in combat gear, some in patient robes, some naked, covered in scars. They moved fast, without words, without hesitation, and they tore into the man with Marco's face. He fought, but he couldn't fight all of them. They overwhelmed him, ripping away the skin, the synthetic flesh, revealing wires beneath. His screams weren't human. Not anymore, not ever. When it was over, the thing twitched once, then went still. Elise stood in the wreckage, surrounded by herself, every face turned to her. Vega stumbled up beside her. Now what? The others were fading, slowly, silently, back into mist, into glass, into the vault itself, one by one, until only two remained. Elise and the older woman subject, 0. Choose, the woman said. One of us has to walk away. Elise stared. At her, at herself, then walked over and took her hand. We all do. She pressed the control panel again. This time, it opened a new door, one no one had used before. Light poured through. The vault collapsed behind them. So did the Institute, as the building burned. Elise didn't look back, but in the final flash of glass before the mirrors shattered completely, she saw her own face one last time, smiling until her reflection whispered, "You still haven't met all of me." They reached the surface as dawn cracked over the tree line, the sky a bleeding amber. Smoke curled behind them, the ruins of the Glasshouse Institute folding inward with a deep, groaning exhale, like the building had finally decided to die. Vega limped beside Elise, wrapped in ash and silence. Every step felt heavier than the last, but Elise wasn't done. She still held the key, still felt the pulse in her palm from where the blood had been drawn. It hadn't faded. If anything, it had gotten stronger. She'd felt it after the vault opened, like something inside her had awakened, like memory wasn't just stored. It was alive. They stole a car from a service road and drove toward DC, neither speaking until the signs changed and the sky began to bruise with morning. You don't believe it's over? Vega said, finally. No, she replied. He turned to look at her, because of what the last one said. Elise didn't answer, but the voice echoed through her like static carved into bone. You still haven't met all of me. She reached into her coat, pulled out the last mirror, the one that blinked. This time it was black dot, no reflection, no glass, just depth, like staring into a hole that had no end. She felt something move beneath the surface. Not physical, cognitive. I think we were never supposed to survive the vault, she said. Any of us. It wasn't just a labette, was a filter. To see what version of me would step outside, which means you weren't the original. I don't know what original means anymore, she whispered. What if we were never whole to begin with? What if the first Elise wasn't a person, but a profile broken into pieces and spread across experiments? Vega fell silent. Again, at the outskirts of Langley, she had him pull over. They parked near a battered utility shed behind the old FAA building. She didn't need directions. Her legs moved like they remembered. She pulled the rusted panel aside. Inside, beneath 3 inches of concrete, was a biometric scanner. She placed her bleeding hand on it. The door hissed open. Darkness below was a staircase cold, metal descending into the earth like a spinal cord. I'm coming with you, Vega said. No, she said quietly. I go alone. He hesitated, then handed her a tracker. 1 hour, he said. If I don't hear from you, I burn the entire city to the ground. She smiled faintly. Deal. Then she vanished into the dark. The stairwell led to a chamber colder than anything she'd known. Her breath fogged instantly. But her body adjusted too fast, like it remembered being here. The hallway was lined with locked rooms, each labeled only by a number. Elise stopped at the last one. Room 0. Inside, a table and a chair, and a file waiting, open. Like someone had known she was coming. She picked it up. It wasn't a dossier. It was a timeline, birth, tests, copies, deployments, collapses, recalls, resets. Her entire life on paper. Every version of her. Every death she didn't remember. Everyone she did at the bottom. In red ink, final candidate approved. Elise Gray composite series, alpha termination scheduled, delayed status, self-awareathon, scribbled underneath, in handwriting she recognized as her own. We are not broken. We are many. She turned toward the back of the room. One final mirror. This one was different. It didn't show a reflection. It showed a doorway, and in it stood a child, small hair matted, pale eyes, black as oil. The girl stared at her, then smiled. I've been waiting, the girl said. Elise stepped forward, trembling. Who are you? The girl tilted her head. I'm who you were before the choice. And then the mirror began to shatter from the inside. Glass fractured. Light bled through the cracks like veins. A sound filled the air like whispering from every direction. At once, the girl reached out. Elise, she said gently, it's time to come back together. And as the glass broke, as the doorway consumed the light, as every memory Elise had damned hadn't flashed through her mind like 1,000 screaming echoes, she remembered her first breath, the real one. Not in a hospital, not in a home, but in a lab alone, watching a man through glass and smiling, because she knew, even then, he was going to die by her hand. The mirror collapsed, and Elise stepped through into herself.